Welcome to Flow Speak Studio, where English flows naturally. Let's start speaking with confidence.
Have you ever opened your email at work, looked at a message written in English, and just stared at the screen thinking, okay, I know these words, but why does this feel so stressful? Because honestly, that moment, that's where a lot of people freeze.
Oh, yeah, that feeling is very real. And what makes it funny, or maybe ironic, is that the email itself is usually not complicated at all. It's something like, can we move the meeting to 3 p.m.? But in your head, it suddenly feels like you're about to take an exam. Your heart speeds up, your shoulders tense, and you're like, why does my English disappear exactly when I need it?
Exactly. And that's why today's episode matters so much. Because English at work isn't about big words or perfect grammar. It's about pressure. It's about being seen. It's about not wanting to sound unprofessional or awkward or not good enough. And we've both been there many times.
I remember one of my first meetings in English. Everyone was talking fast, throwing ideas around, interrupting politely or not so politely. And I was sitting there thinking, I understand everything, but when should I speak? By the time I decided, the meeting was basically over.
Yes. And then later, you replay the whole meeting in your head like a movie, right? You think, oh, I should have said this. I could have said that. In my head, my English was perfect. But in the moment, silence.
And that silence doesn't mean you don't know English. It means your brain is doing too many jobs at once. Listening, translating, judging, worrying, planning. That's exhausting.
So, in this episode, we're not going to teach you formal business English. We're going to talk about real work English, how real meetings actually feel, how emails really sound, and how small talk at work is often more stressful than presentations. Yes, small talk can be the hardest part.
Absolutely. Sometimes a presentation feels easier than saying, so, how was your weekend? And that's not because you don't know English. It's because those moments are human, spontaneous, and unpredictable.
If you've ever felt pressure speaking English at work, if you've ever overthought an email for 20 minutes, if you've ever stayed quiet in a meeting even though you had ideas, you're not alone. And you're exactly where you need to be for this conversation.
So take a breath, relax your shoulders. You don't need to perform here. This is a real conversation, just like the ones you're trying to have at work.
Welcome back to Flow Speak Studio. Let's talk about English at work, honestly, imperfectly, and like real humans. You know, Alex, when people talk about English at work, they usually imagine something very formal, like presentations, reports, big vocabulary. But honestly, when I think about my real work experiences, the hardest moments were never the big ones. They were the small, everyday interactions, the quick good morning in the hallway, the moment before a meeting starts, the casual comments someone makes while everyone is waiting for others to join the call. Those moments feel tiny, but emotionally, they're huge.
Yes, exactly. And what's funny is that those moments are unscripted. There's no slide deck, there's no time to prepare. Someone just looks at you and says something like, hey, how's it going? And suddenly your brain goes blank. You've answered that question 1,000 times in your life, but at work, in English, it feels different. It feels like your answer somehow represents your intelligence, your professionalism, maybe even your value.
That pressure is real. I remember one job where every morning there was this informal coffee moment before work really started. People would gather, chat for 5 minutes, laugh, complain a little, and I understood everything they said. But joining the conversation, that felt terrifying. I would stand there with my coffee, smiling, nodding, doing a lot of nodding. Inside, I was thinking, if I open my mouth, will I sound weird, too quiet, too serious?
And the thing is, that inner dialogue doesn't exist when you're speaking your native language. You don't analyze yourself that much, you just speak. But in English, especially at work, it's like you're watching yourself from the outside. You're thinking about grammar, accent, tone, speed, all at once. No wonder people feel exhausted after a meeting in English.
Exactly. And meetings are a perfect example. People think meetings are about speaking a lot, But most of the time, meetings are about timing, knowing when to jump in, knowing how to interrupt politely, knowing how to agree without repeating the same idea. And when English isn't your first language, that timing feels like a moving target.
Oh, yes. I remember being in a meeting where I had an idea, a good one. I was sure of it. I waited for a pause, but the pause never came. Someone else always started talking. By the time I finally spoke, the topic had already changed, and I said my sentence anyway because I had prepared it so carefully in my head. The room went quiet for half a second, not in a bad way, just confused. And someone said, "Oh, yeah, we already moved on from that." That moment stayed with me.
Those moments hurt more than people realize, not because someone was rude, but because you feel invisible. You feel like, if I were speaking my own language, this wouldn't have happened. And then your brain creates a story. I'm bad at English. I'm slow. I shouldn't speak next time.
Yes, and that's where the danger is, because the problem isn't your English level, it's the environment and the pressure. Work conversations move fast, people interrupt, people don't always listen perfectly, even to native speakers. But when you're learning, you blame yourself for everything.
Silent stressors are another thing to think about. Emails. People don't talk about it enough, but emails can feel like a mental trap. You read the same sentence 5 times. You wonder, is this too direct, too soft, too long? Sometimes I'd write an email, close it, open it again 10 minutes later, and rewrite the whole thing.
Same here. And what's ironic is that many work emails are actually very simple, short, direct, but because it's written English, it feels permanent, like it will be judged forever. I remember spending 30 minutes deciding between hi and hello. 30 minutes for one word.
Yes. And meanwhile, native speakers are sending emails with typos, missing words, casual phrases, and they're not worried at all. That contrast can really mess with your confidence if you don't understand what's happening behind the scenes.
And behind the scenes, what's happening is simple. They're focused on the message, not on themselves. Learners, on the other hand, are focused on themselves, how they sound, how they look, how they're perceived.
That's why I think it's so important to talk about English at work this way, not as a skill problem, but as a human experience. Because once you realize that the stress comes from pressure, not from lack of ability, everything starts to shift a little bit.
Yeah, and that realization doesn't make everything easy overnight, but it gives you permission to be imperfect, to speak even when your sentence isn't perfect, to send the email even if it sounds a little simple. And honestly, simple English at work is often the best English.
Exactly. Work English doesn't need to be impressive. It needs to be clear, human, and real. And once you start seeing it that way, those meetings, emails, and small talk moments stop feeling like tests and start feeling like conversations again. There's something very specific that happens inside your head when you're working in English. It's not loud, but it's constant. You're listening, but at the same time, you're checking yourself. Did I understand that correctly? Should I answer now? What if I say it wrong? And all of that happens in just a few seconds.
Yes, and sometimes you're so busy thinking about how to say something that you miss the moment to say it. Then the conversation moves on, and you're left there thinking, okay, next time, I'll speak next time. But next time feels exactly the same.
Exactly. And what hurts isn't just the silence, it's the story you tell yourself after. You think, I'm too slow. I'm not confident enough. I sound less professional in English. But the truth is, your brain is working overtime.
And that inner dialogue is exhausting. I remember finishing a workday and feeling tired, not because of the work itself, but because of all the thinking in English, replaying conversations, analyzing emails, remembering moments where I could have spoken but didn't.
Yes, people often think confidence is about personality, but in English at work, confidence is really about mental safety. Do I feel safe enough to speak imperfectly? Do I feel safe enough to be human?
And many of us don't. We feel like one mistake could define us, like our accent will be remembered forever. Which is funny because everyone else is usually just thinking about their own tasks, their own stress, their own deadlines.
That's such an important point. We assume we're being judged more than we really are. In reality, most workplaces care about one thing. Did we understand each other? Not perfection, not elegance, not advanced vocabulary.
And when you realize that, something shifts. You start noticing that even native speakers hesitate. They restart sentences, they interrupt themselves. They say things like, sorry, let me rephrase that.
Yes, and that's when the inner dialogue slowly changes from, I can't mess this up, to, it's okay if this comes out a little messy. That shift is small but powerful.
Because once the pressure inside your head goes down, your English actually improves. Not magically, but naturally. You speak more, you react faster, you stop translating every word.
And that's what we want to normalize here. That inner struggle doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're learning in a real environment with real pressure, doing something brave. Let's bring this into real life now. Because this pressure we talked about doesn't live in theory. It shows up in meetings, in emails, and especially in those small moments where English feels very public.
Yes, like meetings. Meetings are a special kind of stress in English. You're not just speaking, you're speaking in front of people, sometimes on camera, sometimes with silence after your words.
And silence can feel scary. You finish your sentence and there's a pause. Your brain immediately thinks, oh no, was that wrong? But often, people are just processing, or taking notes, or muted.
Yes, or someone is looking for the unmute button, which has nothing to do with your English.
So, one practical shift is this. When you speak in a meeting, allow silence. Don't rush to fill it. Don't apologize for it. Silence doesn't mean failure. It often means respect.
Another place this shows up is emails. Many people overthink emails in English. They rewrite the same sentence 5 times, trying to sound perfect, professional, and polite all at once.
Yes, and that's exhausting. A helpful habit is to ask yourself one simple question before sending an email. Is this clear and kind? If the answer is yes, it's probably good enough.
And honestly, some of the shortest emails are the best ones. Not every message needs to sound like a formal speech.
Then there's small talk at work, the hallway conversations, the quick chat before a meeting starts, the how was your weekend moments.
Those moments feel small, but they're powerful. You don't need advanced English for them. You just need presence, simple phrases, real reactions, a little curiosity.
And this is where English becomes less of a performance and more of a connection. You're not trying to impress, you're just participating.
That's the real application, using English not as a test, but as a tool to share ideas, to be part of the team, to show who you are, even imperfectly.
When you approach work English this way, it slowly stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like communication. Before we finish this episode, let's slow down and focus on some key phrases. These are phrases you hear all the time at work, but many learners feel nervous using them. The goal here isn't to memorize, it's to feel when they fit. Let me clarify that. Let me clarify that. This phrase is useful when you feel something may have been misunderstood. You're not saying someone is wrong, you're simply adjusting the message. For example, let me clarify that. I'm not saying we should cancel the project, just delay it. It sounds professional, calm, and confident.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense? This is a gentle way to check understanding without pressure. You're inviting connection, not testing people. I use it a lot after explaining something complex. It says, I care if you're following.
I'll follow up on that. I'll follow up on that. This phrase is gold in meetings. It means you'll take responsibility later, not now, not immediately, which is very realistic at work.
Thanks for flagging that. Thanks for flagging that. This is a polite way to thank someone for pointing out a problem or detail. It turns a mistake into collaboration, and it sounds very natural in professional English.
From my perspective, this phrase softens your opinion. You're not saying it's the only truth. You're saying, this is how I see it. That makes conversations safer and more respectful.
Let's circle back to this. A very work English phrase. It means not now, but later. And yes, sometimes later is very flexible.
I might be mistaken, but this is powerful when you want to disagree politely. You lower the emotional tension before sharing your idea. It shows humility without losing confidence.
Can you walk me through that? This is a beautiful phrase for asking for explanation. You're not saying you don't understand, you're asking for the story behind it. Very natural, very professional.
That sounds reasonable. You're not fully agreeing, but you're showing openness. This phrase keeps conversations moving forward smoothly.
Let me think about it. This phrase gives you time and dignity. You don't need to answer everything immediately. Silence plus thinking is not weakness, it's maturity.
If you start using even one or two of these phrases naturally, your work English will feel calmer, clearer, and more human. As we come to the end of this episode, I want to invite you to pause for a moment. Think about how English shows up in your work life, not just in meetings or emails, but in the small moments, when you greet a coworker, when you hesitate before speaking, when you replay a sentence in your head after a conversation. All of that's real English, and it counts. Many people think professional English has to be perfect, polished, and fast. But the truth is, real work communication is messy. It's human, it's full of pauses, corrections, and moments where we say, let me think about that. And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's something we don't talk about enough. I remember times at work when I felt pressure to sound smart in English. I'd prepare sentences in my head, rehearse them, and then someone would change the topic. And suddenly I was stuck, wondering if I should jump in or stay quiet. What helped me wasn't more grammar, it was realizing that I didn't need to perform. I just needed to participate, imperfectly, honestly, and little by little. And that's what we've been talking about today, using English as a tool, not a test.
Exactly. Your English at work doesn't need to sound native. It needs to sound you, clear enough to be understood, polite enough to feel comfortable, and natural enough that you don't feel exhausted after every conversation. If today you take just one phrase, one idea, or even just the feeling that you're allowed to speak slowly, that's enough. Progress isn't loud. Sometimes it's just a little more confidence than yesterday.
And remember, every conversation you have in English, even the awkward ones, are doing something important. They're building trust, they're building experience, they're building you as a communicator. So the next time you're in a meeting, writing an email, or making small talk by the coffee machine, breathe, pause, and trust that your English is already working for you.
Thank you for spending this time with us at Flow Speak Studio. We're really glad you're here, learning, growing, and showing up, even when it feels uncomfortable. Take your time, be kind to yourself, and keep letting your English flow. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment down below.